Hello everyone, and this is a lesson on how to make like a semi-procedural shader in Houdini using Material X and Karma XPU. So I was going to cover a couple of the new texture nodes that are now available in Houdini 20, but I figured it will be easier if I just made like a full shader so that you'll get an idea of how to actually use it in practice. Okay, so to get started, like this is the shader that I have. So what I'm going to do is I'll just start off with a new material. So I just have a new shader which I created, okay, which is just blank. My lighting is pretty simple. Let me just come in here and I'm going to like get the specular and lower the, yeah. So what I have is I have one area light at the back, and then I have a dome light which has an HDR, which I should be able to see. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I have like an HDR, which is lighting up the whole thing, you know. Okay, so that's the lighting. Like it's pretty straightforward and simple. So I'm going to hide those, and let's come into the material, and I'm going to start off with using the hex styling. So what I want to do is I want to mix like a couple of maps together to get like a base, kind of like a scratched texture, and then use that to sort of build up colors and, you know, reflection and everything. Okay, so what you have is you get something called as, if you type in hex, you'll get something called as hex style triplanar and hex style texture. They both are almost the same except that, so this is the hex style triplanar, and then this is the hex style texture. Okay, the only difference here is you get an additional texture coordinates input. Okay, and you also get like a tangent over here, which you don't get in this. Okay, otherwise they more or less function the same. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll use the hex style texture. So just to show you what it does, I'm going to pick up like this, which is just like it has a number in it, and by default it outputs like a vector 4. So I'm guessing like if you have like a PNG image with an alpha channel, then it sort of, you know, outputs that. And I can just plug that in over here, and this is what you get. Now by default, what it's doing, it's sort of similar to like texture bombing that you would get in like some other material or some other render engine. You have a bunch of options here. You can sort of adjust the scaling of the texture. Let me get rid of the specular temporarily. And you also have like a texture coordinate input. So if you want to control it further, I can just take like materials X texture coordinates and put in like a multiply. So if I want to like further tile it, I can actually like, you know, tile it using this. See, there you go. Okay, that's like way too much, but let me zoom in. See, there you go. So I can just, you know, scale it based on that as well. So you have scaling, you have random scaling, you know, so you can do that. You have random rotation. So now it's not rotating at all. And you also have like a seed value, so you can change it around. You can also adjust the contrast of the image, you know, so how much contrast there should be. There is a fall off value, which I'm guessing that's like blending the, let me keep that to 0. I'm guessing it's like blending the edges. Like, let me adjust that. Yeah, I don't know what that's doing. And then you have like a weight option, which is, you know, like it blends everything better. You can also visualize the weights if you want to, you know, like, there you go. That's what the weights look like. Okay, so it's primarily like, it's got like a hexagon pattern, and it's sort of mixing the textures sort of based on that. Okay, so you have this. Let me do one thing, because I don't want this much. I'm just going to use the other hex style option. So the hex style triplanar, and I'm going to pick up, I have like two textures. So I have like a scratches texture and then another scratches texture. So I kind of mixed up both of them to get the result that I wanted. Because I'm going to get rid of this and just plug this in temporarily over here. So there you go. So you have like scratches. And I can adjust the contrast of this a bit, and more random rotation, slightly smaller size. Use tileable textures. They won't show up in seams because one of the textures I'm using is not tileable. So you get to see like a repeat pattern somewhere. But yeah, generally you want to use like a tileable texture. Okay, so I have this. Let's just call it scratches 1, and then I'll duplicate this, and I'm going to pick up the other one, and let's plug that in over here, and there you go. So this is the other one that I have. And if you want to keep it like more straight, actually this wouldn't be bad because it looks more like, you know, a machine that has gotten like more vertical scratches and everything. So we'll keep this vertical and we'll mix it with this. So what I'll do is I'm going to take both of these and I want to extract like one channel out of them. So I'm going to take a separate. So I'll take a separate vector 4 and just, you know, plug in for both of these. And then just use a multiply and mix them together. So just take the out X for both and we get, you know, that. So there you go. You know, it might take a few seconds to compile. Like every time you plug in like a ramp node or a multiply node or something like that, it will take a few, like you'll see like optics shows a compile option. The CPU just runs off immediately. So if you wanted to actually be a little faster, you could, you know, when you're testing, you can just run it in CPU mode and you won't have to sort of worry about all of this. Okay, so there you go. So see, you have like a, you know, a relatively better looking. These are fairly tiny maps. Like I think they're like 800 by 800 or something. So yeah, because I'm just testing them out. But yeah, use better maps. All right, so now that we have this set up, let's add one more thing into this, which is I want to be able to control like how many scratches I have. So what I'll do is I'm going to take a ramp node. So take a ramp constant and change this to float and let's plug that in. And it again sort of goes into compile. That's the only thing that sort of gets irritating because every time you add a node, it goes into compile mode. Okay, so what you can do is, yeah, let's just wait for a second. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so what I can do is I can just sort of control this, you know, like that. See, so now I can, you know, control how much I want. Or if I remove these two, I can just sort of, you know, get this in a little and get that over here. See, so I can actually like control how many scratches I should have over the whole thing. If you have like Substance Alchemist or Substance Painter, you can also like, you know, make a few black and white images from there, like textures, and then use those over here as well. It'll give you a little more control because the problem right now is that Karma doesn't have as many sort of inbuilt procedural sort of noise maps or patterns and stuff. So, you know, like bringing it through Substance Painter is a little bit better. Okay? You'll have like more options. Okay, because it also Karma XPU doesn't support like a curvature map either. So if you want to do like curvature maps, you will have to bring them in from somewhere else. Okay, so this is good. Now let's take another ramp constant. I'll call this as color and let's plug this in and plug that out over there. And so this much will be like my base, right? So I can just keep this over here. And now I can just color it. So let's say the scratches will be white because that will be like exposed metal. And then this, I want to make it like a dull red. There you go. See, so this looks nice. So now I can like come in here and, you know, adjust a bit more, like how much I want. Yeah. See, so you get like, you know, a more interesting shader overall. All right, so now that the scratches are done, let's set up the rounded edges. Okay, but we're going to use rounded edges slightly differently. So first of all, let me just show you how it works, right? So I'll just bring up the Specular and let me just, you know, turn this down a little bit. Yeah, okay. So now what I can do is if you type in rounded edges, I'm just going to get the radius down to like 0.004. And all you have to do is just plug it into the normals. So if you just take this and plug it into normals and give it a few seconds to calculate. Yeah, you'll see like it sort of rounded off the edges over there. Like if I see it without that, see like these edges are very sharp. And then if you plug this in over here, you'll get, you know, it'll round off those edges a little bit. Okay, but what I want is, I don't want it for this. I'm going to disconnect this. What you get instead is you get something called as a round mask. And if I plug that into base color, you'll see that it actually generates like outlines. So let me get rid of the specular again. There you go. See, so it actually like gives you the black and white rounded edges shader. So I'm going to use this to sort of highlight like more exposed metal areas. But I also want to sort of multiply it with like a noise map. So what I'll do is I'm going to just take this here and let's take a noise map. So I'll take like a noise 3D. Let's do a basic setup for this. So I'll do position and multiply and add. Let's keep the multiply to around, let's plug that in. Let's keep the multiply to around like 4 and plug that into add. This comes into position and we'll multiply this with the rounded edge map. So it'll just hide off certain areas. So you can sort of like move it around and see what you get. Give it a few seconds to compile, but there you go. See, so if you kind of like move it around, you can define like, you know, which areas are exposed and which are not. See. Oh, hold on. I'm using a cell noise. Yeah, noise 3D. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's why it was looking a little weird. Yeah, let's plug that in. There you go. Okay, so this is good. Okay, so we want to combine this with our scratches, except that this should be reversed. Okay, so what you want to do is take a range node, like drop that in over there, and just change this to 1 and this to 0. So your scratches will be like, you know, black and the rest of it will be white. Yeah, there you go. See, so you have like these scratches over there. If you want, you can put in like a ramp node in here and then control it a bit more. Like I can put it into a float and just sort of, you know, like bring it in. Yeah, let me just adjust the multiply a bit. Yeah, you just have like, you just move it around to let show up a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so this is fine. Okay, so now I can just take a multiply and I can mix these together. So just take the multiply over here and mix it with our scratches, and what you'll get is like the whole thing. There you go. So you have your scratches and you have the edges exposed. And this becomes our base for, you know, pretty much everything else that we want to do. Okay, so now let's just plug this into our color. So the color map remains the same. Let's just plug it in over there and plug that out. And there you go. So you now have your scratches and you also have like some of the metallic edges sort of, you know, exposed as well. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to plug this, I want to make like the scratches more shiny so they look metallic, and then this to be a little less shiny. But what I can do is, instead of plug it into metalness, just to do something slightly different, I can plug it into the IOR. Okay, so I can just take a range node and let's call this as IOR. And I'll take this and plug it in over here. Make sure that your noise map and everything, the amplitude remains at 1, because if those are higher, it can cause issues, you know, further down the chain. Okay, so I can just take this and let's keep both of these to 1.5 for now in the out, and let's bring the specular back. So we have, you know, this, and let's plug that into specular IOR. And all I want is, I want the black areas to be around 9. Okay, so that will give you like a fairly shiny sort of metallic feel to the whole thing, or to like these exposed areas. So there you go. The minute it stops compiling, you'll be able to see it. Okay. Yeah, there you go. See, so now you have like a proper sort of like a metal shader. So now, so we have the IOR setup. Let's also do the roughness. So I want the red to be slightly more rough than the metal. So let's just call this roughness. I want the metal to be around 0.05 and this to around 0.2, and plug that into roughness. And there you go. You have your basic metal shader. Okay, now to add, what I want to do is, as a final thing, I want to add like some dust on top of this. And the only way to do that is you have to build like a custom map for that. Okay, so this is the only one I know. Okay, because at some point in time I saw like the OSL code for how to set up like a slope map, and it's really simple. It's like a dot product of the normal and a vector. Okay, like that's it. So it's like 3 nodes that you need to connect. And I don't know anything else of how to do, how to do like a math-based texture, but this is the easiest one you can set up. Okay, so what I'll do is that will sort of like overlay on top of all of this. Okay, so I'm going to take a normal. So just take material x normal, and then take a constant. So take a material x constant. This will be in whatever direction you want it in. Like we set it to a vector 3, and I want it in the y-axis. So it will be like 1 in y. Okay, like this is like RGB or XYZ, whatever. And then just take a dot. So you get a dot product. And just do a dot product of these two things. And then if I just plug this into a ramp, just to control it a bit. And that goes into, like, let's disconnect these two guys temporarily. And I'm going to get rid of the specular. And if I plug this into my, not there, into my base color, that's what you'll get. Okay, so the ramp will allow you to just, like, I'll set it to float. And the ramp will just allow you to control, like, how harsh it should be. We don't want it very harsh. So let's just keep it like this. Okay, but let's do one thing. Let's just take this and kind of multiply it with some kind of a texture. So what I'll do is I'm going to take another hex tile. Okay, like let's pick up this much. Let's call it dust or something. Okay, so let's call it dust. And I did pick up like a dust texture somewhere. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so if I just look at this, this is what I have. Yeah, so it's nothing fancy, and it's also not very great because it's not a tileable texture. I just found something online and took a screenshot of it. Find better textures. This is just garbage, but okay. And what I can do is I can just multiply these two together. So just take a multiply, and I can multiply this with my noise map. Sorry, with my slope map. And there you go. Okay, so what I want to do now is this should mix with the base shader that we have here. Okay, like this guy. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm going to, if you want, you can name these things now, because I think it's like a fair bit. Yeah, let's just take this. I'll put in like a subnet. I'll call it slope. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a mix node. So take a mix, and for the dust, I'll just take a simple constant and use that for color. So let's just keep it to color, and let's just say I have like a pale yellow or something like that. So the color comes in, let's just bring this down. So this will be my background, and this will be the foreground. And the dust comes into the mix. And if we plug that in, I should see, okay, reverse it. Hold on a second. Yeah, let's just disconnect this. This comes into, oh, okay. Yeah, it was correct, but the foreground is on top and the background is below. There you go. Okay, perfect. See, so now you have like dust on top of everything. If you want, you can put in like a ramp in here and then control it a bit more. Like I can just put like a ramp parameter in here and set that, sorry, not a ramp parameter, take a ramp constant. Yeah, so put in a ramp constant. I can set this to float, and I can like control, like how much dust should show up in terms of like based on this noise map that I have, this dust map that I'm bringing in. Yeah, so I can actually just, like control that. See, so this, it kind of exposes a little more of that area. There you go. See, so you can actually like, Maybe if you have like a fingerprint texture or something, it will look a little better. Okay, this is like, let me just try to lower the contrast a bit. Yeah, whatever. Okay, it's fine. Okay, nothing. You're getting, as long as you understand the concept, it's okay. Okay, so this is done. Now we need to apply this to a few other things. Firstly, I want to be able to control the specular. Okay, so let's just bring in the IOR again. But what I want to do is I just want to make sure that like if I bring up the specular, is like the top area should be like wherever you have the dust, like this shouldn't shine as much. So I can just control the specular intensity directly. Okay, so I can again just pick up like a range node. I can take, I can take this ramp constant over here. Okay, the one that's coming in from the slope, and just use that to control, you know, like the specular intensity. Okay. So just take this in and plug this into in, and let's just call it spec intensity. And this can just plug in over here into specular. And then all I have to do is take this to not, like if I make both of them 0, it just goes away. And this will be 1. Okay, like the black areas, which is where which is without the dust, that will be 1. Okay, just compile already. Okay, so this is all like, you know, see, so you have like if you look at it from the side, see, this is all shiny. And then this will be like a slightly less shiny. So you can sort of control it that way. Okay, like if I want, I can just get rid of all of it, which looks interesting, but like, you're not getting like too much of anything on this anymore. Okay. So you can control it this way, like we can, so the dusty areas are fairly sort of low. And I also want to control, like, so the roughness is still in place, which is good. You know, so where's the roughness? There you go. Maybe you can mix it better. Like this probably might not be the best way to go about it. Like, I don't think going through IOR is like the smartest way to do it. Generally, you just want to go through like metal and roughness, and that will give you a better result on the whole thing. But I can also like take another mix for the roughness. And this comes into the background. And maybe I can just take a simple, like, let's just keep the constant over here. And, you know, like, this comes into the mix. That goes into specular roughness. We can sort of control like the roughness of the dusty areas a little bit more. You know, so I can just take this and sort of, you know, bring it up, like not that much, but there you go. See, so the roughness of wherever the dust is gets, see, there you go. Yeah. So that's a lot more than, you know, what you were getting otherwise. See, so I can sort of just control the roughness of the dust. See, so this is like, you know, at 0.14, and then if I wanted to be like really dusty, there you go. See, so now you don't have, you know, except like the metal shines a little bit through it, which doesn't look too bad. So all of this still shines, like, you know, that's still metallic, which is great. And the dusty areas don't shine at all, which is nice. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So you can also, like, if you're more used to this metalness roughness workflow, you can probably use that as well. Like that should be fine. So what I'll do is I'll just do a metalness roughness workflow as well for this. It shouldn't take too long to set that up. Okay, so you'll get an idea of how to do, like, you know, both those things. I think the metal roughness workflow will actually be simpler. Alright, so in order to set up the metalness workflow, what we'll do is I have like this, which was my base. Yeah, so let's just start off from here. And what I'll do is I'll just plug in like a range node. This will be my, this will be the metalness. So let's just call it metalness. And yeah, let's just plug this in directly. So, okay, so this should be 0. So all the red area should be normal, and this should be 1. And let's plug that into metalness. Let's just keep the color over here for now, you know, like before the slope. Yeah, so you just get this, which is, you know, the same thing, just we're not going through IOR. Yeah, so there you go. Okay, so then I can just duplicate this and do the same thing for roughness. So for the roughness, I want the metal to be like 0.05, and this should be 0.2. and let's plug that into roughness. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and then I can just mix the slope map with everything. So let's just take this here. The metalness should be fine. The only thing I want is, I want like wherever there is dust, it should be even more rough than normal. So let's take a mix here. And this will be my background. And the foreground, we'll keep it to around 0.5. So that will be the dust area. And then I can just take this and plug that in to mix. So I can just call this roughness dust. And let's plug that over here and see what we get. Yeah, there you go. Like we can also do the same thing here. Like I can just take, we can just duplicate this for the metalness. Yeah, and again, this comes into the background and this will be 0. And let's plug that into metal. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now what happens is you get almost the same result, except that, you know, you have like one less thing to control, which is we're not controlling the IOR and we're not controlling like the specular. We're just going through metal and roughness, but you get the same result. Like the point being, like once you have like the basic setup for your textures, which is like, this is the big thing, right? So once you have this setup, then you can plug it in through whatever you want and you'll get the result. Okay, like it won't be a big problem. Yeah, let me just do a big render of this and then we can, you know, close the lesson. All right, so that's pretty much it. So this is how you can use like the hex styling and the rounded edge shader to get something a little more, you know, interesting and complicated as far as shader building is concerned. Yeah, so as I said, like if you have access to Substance Painter or Alchemist or anything, you can sort of use those to make more interesting sort of black and white masks and then just use them in here to sort of build up a better shader. The advantage of doing it sort of semi-procedurally is like if you build the whole shader in Substance Painter, it might render faster, but every time you want to make changes, you have to go back to Substance Painter. If you just build masks and bring it in through this, it might be slightly slower, but you'll have more control. So if you want to make changes to color or, you know, like anything, that becomes, you know, a lot easier. Like if I just want to change this to maybe like a, you know, a blue shader or whatever, or it's like green, anything that you want, like those changes become, you know, much more simpler and faster to do than trying to go through, you know, like every time you go back to Substance Painter, make changes, come back. So the process becomes a little bit, you know, easier to work with. All right, so that's pretty much it.